Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I am NoTea, and here as always with me is my co-host Star. It's been a little while, you can tell.
My co-star. Uh,
And welcome back to another episode of Critics, Writers, and Weebs.
Thank you for joining us today, everyone.
Now, this is going to be a pretty fun episode because I believe I said in our first episode I didn't really grow up with anime. It's more of a kind of recent phenomenon in my life. So there was a lot of nostalgia for you, but for me, it was like my nostalgia is going back to when I was 17, which was 5 years ago. I hate the passage of time.
Crazy to think about. But this topic that we've come up with this video will be kind of something that we can both look back on very nostalgically. So without further ado, I'll get into it. We are going to do a retrospective on one of the greatest cable channels and potentially one of the worst cable channels, Cartoon Network.
This most it is very interesting, kind of going through a lot of Cartoon Network stuff going for this because this has the greatest amount of appeal throughout my entire life. Like obviously I was just a fan of Disney Channel and Nick growing up. Well, when I had it, I'll get into that part later. But I watched a lot of this stuff as a kid. It appealed to me as a kid, but I got older, and there's still some gems in there, some stuff I really like, but most of it is what it was when I first watched it as a kid. Versus Cartoon Network has the greatest amount of shows where I don't think I can fully appreciate them until I am at the age I am at now.
Yeah, I completely agree. It kind of has like an evolution where it knows its audience grew up and the shows get mature as it gets along. Well, overall, not every show.
Well, it's like a lot of their shows aren't even as a they grew up with the audience because a lot of the stuff didn't run for particularly long. Like I looked at a lot of the run times, like some of them were only
Some
went on
do.
for 2 to 3 years or something, but they knew how to really write and kind of animate everything in a way where it's like kids can understand and get it, but as an adult, there's kind of a whole other level to it that you see going on that you still just fully respect and appreciate.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's only the later shows now that I think about it that do have that bigger progression, that 8, 9 year journey.
Yeah.
Um, but certainly what you're saying is true as well, where there's little things that you don't pick up on as a kid, but as an appreciator of the art or as an adult, you could pick that up and say, "Wow, that's why it was so good as a kid."
Yeah. Kind of like the probably one of the biggest things I could think of like that is something I know you and I are going to talk a lot about, which is Chowder. I
Mm-hmm.
liked Chowder as a kid. I thought it was funny. I thought it was goofy and all that, but didn't stay too much with me when I kind of moved away from everything. But as an adult, going back through and rewatching Chowder, it is legit one of the funniest shows I have ever seen. Period.
It's one of those shows that it's so easy to just laugh at because it is just so funny. It's a genuinely funny show.
It's and it's funny on so many different levels. From the animation is always really goofy and has a very playful style. The dialogue, it has dumb jokes, but they're the best kind of dumb jokes that you just love people making. And the voice acting is beyond stellar across the entire board.
And I think overall, Cartoon Network has some of the best voice acting. They've hired some absolutely fantastic voice actors. They have great recording studios, and I think the atmosphere they provide is at least welcoming for new and good voice actors.
No, definitely. It is very interesting looking through a lot of their shows and seeing how young a lot of these people were when doing the voice acting. I think Chowder's voice actor was only 10 throughout most of
Something like that.
10 to 12 throughout most of the recording, and he legit gave a phenomenal performance. Like dude was acting next to John DiMaggio and was still able to give a performance that rivaled that.
Yeah, and I mean, it wasn't like it's easy. Like, not only is he the main character, and they did that with Adventure Time, The Amazing World of Gumball,
Steven Universe also did the same thing.
Steven Universe. I mean, they all have these like very young kid voice actors who I don't think any of them do a bad job.
Like the only case I could really give for is when they give an edge job is at the beginning of their shows. But even then, everything in that show is kind of when they all started out because they're all trying to figure out what they're trying to do.
Right. and like in the case of like the Amazing World of Gumball, I know they switched voice actors a lot for the main cast, and
Yeah,
that's fine. It's they switched. You can't go in expecting the same voice of a 9 long year, but that's not a problem. It's
yeah.
just it's what happened.
But maybe to kind of give a bit of structure to this, should we, you and I both start out with like how we both kind of found Cartoon Network, like what was going on when we first started getting into it, and kind of what really
Yeah,
left a big impression on us as like growing up, what we still come back to, what like it's kind of interesting because I don't know, it's like I'm old enough to say now that I have been through a couple of different generations of Cartoon Network, and a lot of them are all very different from each other.
I can yes, I'm fine doing that. And I think before I should start with I didn't always have cable at my house. And I think you're going to continue on with this. So I didn't always have cable at my house. There were times where it wasn't like I could watch Cartoon Network at my house, but through other family members or finding ways on the internet that weren't completely legal, I was able to get access to Cartoon Network. So I've seen the greater majority of these shows. There might be only one or two of the Cartoon Network shows that I haven't actually watched. So I think you want to continue this.
Yeah, so I had cable at my place till I was about like 7 or 9 or so, and then I moved to a place and never got cable again. So for a lot of people my age, a lot of the stuff they grew up with, I had like fleeting glimpses into, like Steven Universe, Regular Show, and Adventure Time, all big shows for a lot of people my age. I only had kind of glimpses into for a while, and I had trouble really latching onto those until much later in life when I could actually like sit down and actually start going through and watching all of them.
Mm, mm. Okay. So fair to say that despite not having those shows, you were still able to appreciate them at a much later
Oh, most definitely, because
time.
again,
Exactly.
like I said earlier, as a kid, even what I could get my hands on, I wasn't. There's some stuff I absolutely loved as a kid, like when I was young, I remember staying up really late and Dexter's Lab, Samurai Jack, Ed and Eddie, like all this stuff would coming on, and I didn't fully understand it, but I really liked and appreciated it. Then I wasn't there for the next phase, and now I'm kind of like going back to that and like finally rediscovering all of it.
Okay. All right. So why, what brought you into Cartoon Network? What made you, what kept you? What was the hook? What was the big reason why Cartoon Network, you know, stuck into your life?
Hmm. Why that one stuck around? Hmm. That's a very well. I think part of it is just how many different stuff Cartoon Network did. Like, like as much as I loved all the stuff Cartoon Network kind of made by themselves as a kid, I was always the biggest fan of the Boomerang programming block, which was them re-airing episodes of Scooby Doo, Tom and Jerry, like Flintstones. Like Scooby Doo, Tom and Jerry are legit two of my all-time favorite like franchises of anything. So there's always that. I was always coming to that. Then I got a bit older. Then I started watching Star Wars: The Clone Wars. I was a massive Star Wars fan. I liked Total Drama a lot, which you don't think all this stuff would be kind of coming from the same place or being licensed, but it seems like no matter where I went, I kept finding my way back to there.
Yeah, and let's just compare some of those shows. So you have Total Drama Island, which is essentially just like a Big Brother type show where weekly contestants get voted off the island, last
Yeah,
person wins money, but it's a cartoon and
it's like a
I loved
parody.
it.
It's
Yeah,
like a teen parody. Like there are definitely times where I was watching it where I felt like, am I supposed to be here for this?
and that's its own genre. And then you have Star Wars: The Clone Wars, which is high space fantasy. And
It's like a
before that you have a like time period piece of comedy like the Flintstones, or you have just simple slapstick like Tom and Jerry. Like these are all shows that are available from the same network.
yeah. Then I think the thing that lately really brought me back into the world of Cartoon Network was a couple years ago when I finally sat down and watched Steven Universe from front to back. And it's I think you and I have talked about this a few times, But I do legit think Steven Universe is one of the most important animated shows to come out in like the past decade or so.
I would say it's like importance is underappreciated.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say Rebecca Sugar's impact on cartoons, she should be idolized for
Like
her contributions in the 2010s and 2020s.
there's very much like you very much kind of whenever you kind of look at the history of any sort of like media or art form, there's always certain periods where someone really changes how the entire thing is viewed, how it's approached, and yeah, what Rebecca Sugar did with Steven Universe, it's like you kind of felt it throughout the entire landscape of TV animation, and like I'm still seeing stuff like that nowadays.
And she had contributions on some of my favorite shows. Like she had contributed to Adventure Time, making a lot of the best songs and music from it. She contributed to Star versus the Forces of Evil, which is out of Cartoon Network entirely, and all these other programs. And like, I don't think the 2010s look the same without her contributions.
Yeah, it's like, and it wasn't just like the music or the animation that was different. It was the general approach to writing style. There's kind of like a thing people talk about nowadays how a lot of anime series are. They start off small episodic, but then they gradually build a story as they kind of go along, get more deep. Or Steven Universe is definitely one of the first ones to do that. But for me, one of the biggest things that set Steven Universe apart was it kind of wasn't afraid to get more emotionally honest with its audience at times.
It's that honesty and that connection with like some sort of almost like a darker moment that's what
Yeah,
made Steven, in my opinion, good. Because I'm not, I'll go on a limb. I'm not the biggest Steven Universe fan. I've said that to you multiple times, and I think it's still a great series. I would still recommend it to a lot of people. But some of the things that I loved about it was just how it approached a lot of issues in life, and the resolutions are very mature.
yeah, it was very like I especially watched it in sort of a darker period of my life, so it was very helpful. It wasn't like it didn't over dramatize things a lot, but it was more just it was just honest about things. Like, hey, this thing kind of sucks, like, or hey, this is what I'm kind of dealing with, and it's kind of it deals with more mature elements, but its way of always wrapping it back around to sort of a childish hopefulness that kind of
Yeah,
that kind of like helped bring it forward and really made it what it was and how it affected everything that it did.
yeah. I didn't have the right word there, but the childish hopefulness. I think that's I think that's also a little bit transcendental for a lot of Cartoon Network,
Yeah,
especially the later shows. But something like Steven Universe bringing you back, you could see that because it does give you that. This is life. We'll be honest with you, but you can still have this nice, almost optimistic point of view.
like kind of there's always a lot of talks in series about the power of friendship and kind of how goofy it is, but like I feel like Steven Universe really handled the power of friendship one of the best ways by not saying your friends and allies are like a superpower, but they're what's going to keep you going through everything.
And that was probably my favorite take from Steven Universe, if I'm being honest with you. That and I genuinely love Steven's dad as a character.
One of my favorite dads in all of fiction. Like he is just absolutely phenomenal.
I agree. I think a lot of people that I tell this to, they're like, "Oh, who's your favorite Steven character?" I'm like, "Well, it's Steven's dad." They're like, "What?" And I'm like, "No, I just think that his connection to Steven and how he always approaches fatherhood is such a sub. It's like it's realist, but it's also kind of surreal, and that's it's such a great approach, and I love it.
It's like there's definitely because I had a father who was like Steven's dad in a lot of ways. Like not as good if I'm going to be honest, but it was very interesting seeing that approach to fatherhood that like I could relate to on a more personal level, but could kind of also see the differences between like the reality and kind of what that was trying to be.
Mm, mm. Nice. I guess my turn. So from an early age, I remember what really drew me into Cartoon Network was like you said, the variety. I could watch Ed, Ed and Eddie, laugh, and then I could go in and watch Camp Lazlo, and then I could watch Powerpuff Girls. And so I would get all these different genres, all these different art styles exposed to so much. And one of the biggest connections I had is I was actually fortunate enough to like watch some of these shows with like my grandpa, who was a big important idol in my life. And his favorite show was Courage the Cowardly Dog. And
He has good
so
taste.
we would watch Courage every time I went over his house, and it was like this beacon of just so much fun. I could laugh, I could feel scared, but it takes, like you said, that being an adult, looking back and seeing, oh, Ed and Eddie is a little bit darker than you remember, and oh, Courage really handles some mature things, and you just miss it as a kid, and it's so good as an adult. Some shows they kind of don't change too much as you become an adult, like you said. Like Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. That was one that I watched a lot as a kid and went back as an adult and rewatched. And I guess my take on it isn't really too much different from when I was a kid. I was like, wow, this doesn't really do what Courage did. But that's not a bad thing because it just does what it does. And it's a fantastic show at that. It has a wonderfully imaginative idea and it's just fun to watch all the imaginary friends. No pun intended. Now, what keeps me with Cartoon Network is their ability to produce just some of the best, most realistic cartoons ever. Like as a kid and as an adult, I can look back and say, this is childhood, right?
Mm-hmm.
And shows like The Amazing World of Gumball and Clarence have brought me back into Cartoon Network, and I've never been able to leave. Because I just see this wonderful approach to what I perceive my childhood to be. It's like Ed and Eddie, Powerpuff Girls, that was great, but it's this new wave where that you have Adventure Time, Steven, regular show. It's all those 2010 plus shows that really kept me because it's like you had all those fantastic shows as a kid and you still have fantastic shows as now an adult and teenager and stuff. So it's their consistency with quality cartoons that really has kept me and brought me back into Cartoon Network.
Well, it's like that makes it really interesting with Cartoon Network because you can really kind of see how the shows on it evolved as time went on. Like it wasn't like they had a set thing and they're just kind of sticking to it for as long as you possibly can. Like I don't know if you saw that one photo of the Nickelodeon airing block, and it's just nothing but SpongeBob for like
Nothing but
days on end.
SpongeBob, which SpongeBob is probably top. You could argue SpongeBob is the best Nickelodeon show.
It has last Nickelodeon has Last Airbender.
So I said you could argue SpongeBob is the best. It's definitely top two, but you could argue that SpongeBob is the best Nickelodeon show. So they, I think Nickelodeon, and I know this is about Cartoon Network, but I think Nickelodeon is that very hit or miss kind of show
Yeah,
or
like
network.
I could see that, but it's like, but the point was like with Cartoon Networks, like you can see very much the style they had like when we were kids, like early to like mid 2000s, kind of what they were doing for that stuff, like Courage, Flapjack. I have been rewatching scenes from Flapjack preparing for this, and what the actual fuck did they what they're showing us?
Like it's like creativity. They allow so many different art styles, so many different approaches to the genre. They or the media. They just do so much, and it almost feels like the writers are as free as writers can be.
Yeah. Well, another interesting thing I found out with Flapjack was so the guy who created it, I forgot what his name was. He hasn't gone on to do too much after that. But I looked at some of the people who were writers and storyboarders on it. You had the guys who go on to make Adventure Time, Regular Show, Nick and Morty,
Yeah.
Gravity Falls, and I think the guy who made Amphibia all working on this show at some point.
Yes.
It's a
I mean, that's it's such an important show for the future of cartoons.
it's a TV animation rocks pirates, basically.
Yeah, it is.
Like
Yeah.
no one talks about them, but you look at it and it's like, what the fuck kind of people are they pumping out of there?
Yeah, I remember I first saw that when I was scrolling through Flapjack. I was like, "Oh, Pendleton Ward worked on this Adventure Time." I was like, "Oh, okay. Oh, J.C. Quinto worked on this. What?" And you just keep going, and you're like, "Wait, wait, wait! More names are on this list." And you can see that because it is a very uniquely creative show. I feel like all of those minds worked on that show.
And it went on to form something that I don't think could ever be properly replicated.
Yeah, someone's leaf blowing.
There's they haven't done it any other day of the week, but this exact time. I am so happy right now.
Mind you, mind you, it is very estranged times for someone to be leaf blowing in either of our locations. So,
Yeah, it is like
um,
it's like 3:30 where I'm at right now, which is I would say people are normally at work, but it's a weekend, so that doesn't exactly work.
yeah, but who just starts yard work at 3:30 p.m. on a Saturday?
Now I'm just like going back over a list of like Cartoon Network shows, and it is still just absolutely ridiculous. Something I feel like we should talk about real quick was I was not around for this, but Toonami.
Yeah, okay. So, as an anime fan who happened to have cable at this time, like Toonami was a gateway to so many anime, especially at an earlier age. Um, I don't remember the exact timeline of Toonami. I think
I
um,
think Toonami was a thing from like the like
mid,
mid to late 90s, and then it went on to like the
yeah,
2010s. Stopped for a bit, then they brought it back a couple years ago.
like I know that Toonami. Okay, well, all I know is I was able to watch so many series on Toonami, and that would the worst part about it is it was kind of like airing, but back in the day, if you missed an episode, that was it. Like
Yeah, it's
there was,
like
especially as a kid, you had like no hope of finding that episode.
I have heard horror stories of kind of like the licensing complications at the time, like DVD releases, like the whole thing sounds like a really screwed up situation.
And so I would watch anime like what was one that was on Toonami? I think Full Metal Alchemist was on the original.
Yeah, like I think Full Metal Alchemist is on it. I know Dragon Ball Z was a big thing on
I
it.
know Dragon Ball Z was on it, but I think it was Full Metal Alchemist. I remember I missed like 3 episodes and I just came back. I was like, wait, no, because I realized they were in an entirely different location, and I was like, no, I missed episodes.
Especially with a
Like
story
little kid me was so sad.
especially with a story like Full Metal Alchemist, where it's like the original TV series isn't as tight as Brotherhood, but my God, you could still miss so much stuff in only a couple episodes.
Now, I I don't know exactly how long Toonami lasted, but I do remember I had a soccer tournament, and it was I think 2014, and so we had to stay in a hotel. This is after I had lost cable. Um, and I remember we had Cartoon Network on. My whole family was in here for it was like a pretty far away soccer tournament for us, and Toonami was on, and it just so happened to be an episode of a Kame ga Kill, and I was like, so it had to have been at least 2014 because I remember
Yep.
watching a Kame ga Kill on Toonami, and I was like, this is on Toonami? Whoa.
Yeah, I think it was like mid 2010s it lasted. Then it stopped for like 4 or 5 years, and they brought it back around the start of the 2020s.
Started in the 20s, yeah. And it was like a very random episode of Kame ga Kill, like the episode 16. So I caught it like
Every
in the middle.
every episode of Akame got random. Is random.
Yeah, like the Jaegers were already formed, Night Raid was already formed, so it's definitely post like episode 4, but some characters are still alive, so it's
I'm
definitely not episode 24.
I'm done. I was done. I'm done. I was thinking about Kill la Kill, which also would have been very
uh,
random, but yeah. Oh yeah, I guess Akame was on Toonami. I don't know. I have my timelines messed up for all this.
That's yeah. That's the only like I know Full Metal. So at least 2002 and at the latest 2014.
Yeah.
So we have a little scale, but yeah. For me, Toonami was just a gateway. I was able to watch anime, and I also like had severe insomnia as a kid and sometimes as an adult. So I would just stay up very late into the night just because I couldn't sleep. And Toonami and Cartoon Network helped get me through that. And then Adult Swim too would help get me through that because um, I don't want to count Adult Swim on Cartoon Network because I could talk about Adult Swim for 2 hours on another episode. So I think we'll save Adult Swim specifically for a different one.
Yeah.
But it is connected to Cartoon Network, so that definitely saved some early 2000s Darien nights.
My main experience with cartoon, both Adult Swim specifically, was falling asleep, waking up at some godless hour of the night, and just a random episode of King of the Hill would be playing, and I would not understand what was going on.
Man, I love King of the. Okay, let's not talk about Adult Swim because I will go crazy.
Yeah. But have you been? Are you recent to stuff coming out on Cartoon Network still, or have you kind of like taking a couple steps back from it?
um, I've definitely taken steps back, especially living in Japan now. It's not really available to me as much. What What was probably the newest show I've seen? I think the like Craig the Creek show, Craig of the Creek. That's like the newest one I watched.
I've been meaning to watch that.
Let's see.
Well, I guess Ben 10 was also on Cartoon Network.
Oh yeah, once you start looking back, you're like, oh yeah, that was on there too.
I am still going down this list.
There's so much. Okay, maybe let's kind of segue here a little bit. So what shows did you love as a really young kid? Let's say like as before, maybe up to 8 years old.
So,
What
like
was
I
like the go-to? Like you were so happy to see this show.
yeah, so like I said, I Scooby Doo and Tom and Jerry were my absolute favorite things to come on. Whenever those were on, I was a happy little ball of autism and anxiety. But but those always made me really happy. Then I always appreciated Samurai Jack because it was different yet so similar to everything kind of going on. Like as a kid, I had no show to watch like Samurai Jack, and I really need to rewatch that show to fully appreciate everything. But it had such a interesting style, cool animation. It's just such a interesting tone to it. Like it wasn't like super ultra serious, but it allowed moments to breathe. Like it wasn't always trying to make you laugh with stuff.
And it could.
Yeah,
It could make you laugh, but it's really those deep settling moments. And you can see like it is inspired by a lot of anime and old Kurosawa films and stuff like that. So it's a genuinely fantastic series that if you haven't seen, check it out.
then as a kid, like as I said, I always loved Chowder as a kid because it was goofy, silly, fun. Like something you don't really ever think about till you're an adult is that like whenever like there's a clothing pattern that has like a wallpaper on it or something, that's more or less stays still as the characters are moving.
Yeah, like they walk across screen and it's the same pattern just repeated along the line.
Like it's like how like green
Which
screens, if you're wearing like clothing of a similar color, it looks like you're just kind of like walking through something. That's basically all the characters, and that's such a weird detail that you just don't notice as a kid, but you look back and it's like, of course they would do something like that. How could they not do something like that?
and it just it's so awesome. It makes sense.
And
And also, I think Cartoon Network shows were some of the I'm not going to say the first, but they were definitely the best at an early age of breaking the fourth wall.
well, they're the kind of few kid stuff that I really saw breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, like a lot of things that would break the fourth wall were usually like more adult film or adult cartoons, adult films and stuff. And this was the first one that was like kind of directly targeted at kids that could just do that. Could be like, yeah, you're a viewer in this world. We can do whatever we want.
Yeah.
Like the most famous instance is when Chowder is literally writing on the screen,
Yeah. I
and you know,
Something that has always stuck in my head from a kid was just that one episode where they spend all the money and they have no more production for the animation, so you just see the voice actors, and I was just wondering what we're supposed to do, how are we going to do this? So they just throw a car wash, throw together like $5 to pay the animators, and boom. And that's just I did not understand that as a kid, but I always found it so fascinating.
it's just so funny. Even as a kid, you can laugh at that. You're like, why are there real people? And speaking of live action, do you remember when Cartoon Network experimented and had like 5 shows that were live action? This was like 2007, 2010, I think.
Yeah, it's like
So we have Destroy, Build, Destroy, uh, Hole in the Wall. There was, I don't remember the name, but there was I think it was a quiz
Incredible Crew.
show. Yeah, there was Incredible Crew. I think there was a quiz show on roller coasters. That might have been Nick, so I don't want to.
Yeah, that my main thoughts during that era was I saw the commercials for it and I saw they're eating up my airtime for the stuff I actually enjoyed watching.
Yeah, looking back, like as a kid, I remember watching them, but as an adult, I just genuinely like. I know, especially with the recent stuff on Dan Schneider coming out,
Mm,
I know why they made these, but if they just stuck to what
yeah.
worked, like the cartoons,
Hmm.
it would have been better.
Yeah. Well, you said you watched
But
them as a kid.
I will say, as a kid, I remember really enjoying Destroy, Build, Destroy.
Well, I was gonna say, were you watching them because you were specifically wanting to watch those, or were you just sitting in front of the TV waiting for something you were excited for to come on?
Any of the other ones, it was because I was waiting for the new episode of Adventure Time. But before that, it was I actually did kind of like Destroy, Build, Destroy as a kid. So much so that I went back to rewatch it, and I was like, man, this is terrible.
It's it's very funny, kind of like trying to think of that sentiment of like, oh, they'll really just throw anything in front of us. But then you think of all the other animated shows they've done, and it's like, wow, we got some art in this.
It's like,
And
yeah, they will literally try anything, and they did.
like, Gumball is literally just how many different styles can we cram into one thing and have it all make sense?
And I think if you don't have Gumball, you don't have like Smiling Friends, right?
I still need to watch Smiling Friends as well.
Oh my gosh, yes, you do.
Well, it's very interesting with kind of a lot of the spirit of what Cartoon Network was doing. You saw kind of translated to when HBO Max got started, like the original shows for that. Like almost
Mm-hmm.
all their original shows on that were basically just stuff you'd find on Cartoon Network.
Or literally continuations of shows from Cartoon Network, like
Yeah,
Adventure Time, Distant Lands.
yeah. Then
I is wait, I'm sorry, not to interrupt you. Is JC Quintel's other show? What's it called? Is that on HBO Max?
Close Enough.
Um, Close enough.
I think that's on Hulu.
It's on Hulu.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's like the Max original stuff was on there. Then they kind of scrubbed it all from existence for tax write-off, which fuck David Zaslav. Just
Just get him out of here.
it's literally every single decision he's made
It's
has been bad. It's
why do we pay people?
I don't know. Well, on a more positive note, something I was going to say a bit earlier, another show I was a big fan of as a kid was Teen Titans.
I am about to get murdered by the internet. As a Let me preface. As an adult, I love Teen Titans. It is one of the greatest series that Cartoon Network was able to produce in the early 2000s. As a kid, I would genuinely switch to Nickelodeon when Teen Titans was
That's
on. Little kid me
bold.
was just too stupid. I swear. Um, like I said, as an adult, I love it. I think it's one. I am so sad I missed it. But as a kid, like that was my time to go outside. But I think it's because I was a little bit older, and all the kids that liked Teen Titans, I didn't like, so maybe it was by association.
Hmm. Well,
But
it's very interesting looking at sort of our life cycles of what we enjoyed. Like as little kids, we like dumb, goofy, silly stuff. Then as we started getting to like the middle school, like early high school range, we like stuff being serious. We like stuff being intense. We want everything to be deep and to think about it. And now as we're older, we like dumb, goofy, silly shit.
yeah, go back to the dumb stuff. Like I literally say how um Gear 5 is one of my favorite things ever. Like, let's do this, let's keep going. More goofy, more goofy.
Like I'm sure high school me would have absolutely hated Chowder. Now I'm just like rewatching it. I'm like,
I
this is legit fantastic.
I don't know about
I
that. Like I don't want to challenge you there, but I don't know about that. It's really hard to hate Chowder.
well, it's like I wouldn't have fully respected it as what it was. I'd say
Yeah.
I would enjoy it, but the most I could give it is this is dumb, goofy, silly fun in like a more derogatory way. Now I say it's dumb, goofy, silly fun in like the highest praise possible I could give something.
Yeah, it's like it that is the biggest compliment we could give it. Because it's so dumb that it's smart.
And like I never really got into regular show when that was airing when I was in like middle school, high school. I was in the phase of I thought, oh, this is just dumb, goofy, and silly, and I just kind of wrote it off. Now I really want to sit down and rewatch it because I think I would actually absolutely love it.
Yeah, so I went through like a renaissance with some of the shows, like Steven and regular show, because as a kid, I guess Adventure Time just kind of swept me so much. Um, well, okay, before I get this is later. This is a little bit later, so I'll go into what shows I watched at like the 0 to 8, and so my favorite was definitely Courage. Um, no question about that. Courage the Cowardly Dog,
I forgot to mention Courage.
which by the way has so many episodes. I didn't realize how many episodes it had. It has like 4 seasons
Yeah,
or
which
maybe six.
at the time was pretty long for like a like kind of
Cartoon Network
two ten
series.
minute bits on Cartoon Network like that.
But that one was by far and away my favorite. Every time I was able to watch it, I would be terrified of it. Like I couldn't watch it right before bed. Maybe that's why I had insomnia. But
Return the slab.
no, it was I don't know why, but like the scariest episode for me was always the heads of beef episode.
I'm trying to.
The
This the
pig hamburger shop, which actually isn't even a scary episode
I
because there isn't any murder in the episode.
I think I know what you talk about. It. You
Like,
say the episode with the pig cook, and you don't think you'd forget something like that, but in the wild world of courage, yeah, that's just another thing happening.
but yeah, so Courage as a kid, and then I loved, let's see, so early 2000s, Foster's. I told you I loved that as a kid. As an adult, kind of fine on it. I don't think it progressed any higher than it needed to, but yeah, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. Um, Especially the movie. I think the Foster's movie was like the first time I actually sat down and watched like a special episode to a cartoon that I can recall.
Hmm.
And then the Ed, Edd n Eddy movie as well. Those were like the exposure I had to like a cartoon that got translated to like an hour and a half long or hour long picture.
Hmm.
And so Ed, Edd n Eddy would be the other one as a kid that I like those three I would just recycle. And like I specifically remember Ed, Edd n Eddy, my neighborhood friends. We would run around like Double D, Ed or Eddie and Ed, and we would just pretend we were Ed, Edd n Eddy running around. So because there was three of us. So yeah, Ed, Edd n Eddy very nostalgic. Did you ever want? Were you big on Ed, Edd n Eddy as a kid?
I enjoyed it. It does fall into the category for me of I don't think I could have fully appreciated the goofiness and the silliness till now.
I agree. I think you need to look back with your adult lens to
But
really appreciate the series.
it is very funny having to be an adult to fully appreciate how to be goofy.
Yeah, it's like man, this is what I did. Yeah, no,
Because like you're told as a kid, like when you're a grown up, you need to be serious. You need to like you need to be responsible. You gotta like take everything seriously. And I'm like, that the one clip of Ed and Eddie where it's like they're trying to jump over a fence, and one of them just like goes into the hole in the door and just like goes through like a cat or something. I'm like, peak art right there.
It's like you said, when you're building a character, your new character test for them is the Ed and Eddie test, which is that how would your character
Like the characters,
approach that situation?
it's like they're trying to rush somewhere. There is a fence with a door in their way. How do they get through it?
Which is a great character test because you could play around with that, and it's from Ed and Eddie, and they played around with it. And then, so I'll just transition. So maybe preteen, so like 8, 9 years old to like 13-ish, 12,
Mm-hmm.
like that kind of realm, because that's when you're really starting to develop. So this was for me peak Chowder, peak Flapjack. Destroy, Build, Destroy was in this time block, and this is when I started uh, uh, Adventure Time and regular show.
Was
But
was this around the time they were first airing? Cause
yeah, this is like for me, this is like 2008, 2012 ish area, that time
yeah,
period.
I think that's when they start. That's when those started.
Because Adventure Time was 2010, regular show was 2011, I think.
And I think Steven was also like 2010 or something like that.
I think it was 2010 as well. Yeah, but I actually started a little late on Steven.
Mm.
I started like 2013, 14.
Which it's weird to think about with Steven starting in like 2010, considering the entire series went on to like 2020. So it's like,
Which is good.
which is good. It's a very good series, and I'm apparently told when it was airing, it would just kind of go on break for a while, then randomly come back. Which,
I think that's why I wasn't watching it at first, because like there would be an episode, then there wouldn't.
well, it's like I think I heard fans describe there was like Steven blocks where it's like it just would not air for a while, then you would just get a bunch of new episodes back to back, and there was like not really a set schedule on how this was working.
I'd like to look into that. There might be a specific reason as to why that was.
Well, I mean, animation is always very difficult to do, so
Right,
like
but it could be any reason.
it could be a multitude of reasons. It's like I since I didn't watch Steven Universe as it was coming out, I didn't experience that. My closest relationship with something like that was at Gravity Falls, where season one came out episode a week, pretty standardly. Then I think there was like almost like a year break in between seasons one and
Yeah, it was
two,
a long break.
and then the first half of season two came out semi regularly. There's like another 6 months break after like the that episode. I you wouldn't know how to survive that. And then the rest of season two kind of came out. There was like either an episode once every 2 weeks or a month or so. Like it was spread out.
Yeah, and I mean, I think everyone knows from that time period. Of course, it was Chowder and Adventure Time. Those were my two favorites.
Mm-hmm.
I, oh man, they're just so good as a kid. You just love watching them. But at this time period, this is when Adventure Time didn't really grow yet. It was just this kind of exploration more, and you got hints of the overall lore. But this is like season 1 and 2 for me
Yeah, because I know it
at
also.
this time period.
I also know I have not sat down and watched season Adventure Time its entirety. I think I've watched through season one. I don't think I've been able to go past that. I've life has been a struggle, but yeah, I know it does that thing like with Steven where kind of like you gotta just explore the characters a bit first, but then you explore the characters after a certain point in time.
Yeah, it gets very very like just such an expansive world.
And like Adventure Time is still going on. There's still like spin-offs and stuff like that to it.
Yeah, Distant Lands. They're still making post cartoons on it. I don't think anything will capture the originality of the series, especially into the later stuff. But I'm happy it's still getting attention because that means people will go back and watch the original
Yeah.
series.
Well, it's like, and kind of from what I've seen, it seems like the newer stuff isn't bad. Like they're still able to find things to explore with this world, this setting, and these characters. Which, after almost 15 years at this point is a really difficult and impressive thing to do.
Like, it's difficult to do for 3 seasons, let alone 15 years. So how about that time period for you, the preteens,
Preteens,
like 9 to 12 ish?
like I said, Teen Titans is a big one. I was also really into Young Justice at the time, which is a DC animated series because I was big superhero
Mm-hmm.
fan for a good portion of my life. So Teen Titans was when I wanted to feel silly, but Young Justice was when I wanted to feel like grown up. Like this is serious. Like this is the realistic stuff. Then also Star Wars: The Clone Wars is also a big one, which I got a late start on that, but then I found it on Netflix and I kind of basically seventh and eighth grade for me was just rewatching that show on repeat whenever I felt like it.
Star Wars: The Clone Wars also had the best Lego sets. And oh my gosh, I forgot about Lego Ninjago.
That's another like I keep flashing past to it on the list. I'm like, oh yeah, I need to talk about Ninjago at some point. But yes,
That's we need to talk about Lego Ninjago because that
it,
was that time period for me, the 8 to 12, and later into teenage years.
it's I don't know if it still
It's
hold up, but my god, did I
oh,
enjoy
it
it as a
does.
kid? Oh
Oh
really?
my gosh. Oh, I've rewatched it like 4 times with my sister. We love Lego Ninjago. I still love Lego Ninjago,
I
and it's so funny because it's just a cash grab. It's a way to sell a new Lego set, make a TV show, and it didn't have to be good. But
it
as it started out, it was pretty simple. It is a 4 episode, like a 4 20-minute episode little snidbit. It's like this is what we could do. It was received very well. It it looked very good. It sold pretty well as a Lego set. It's still
yeah.
they're making new sets today, and then they were able to make a series about it that I think is still continuing.
I need to check because I remember I was following up with the series for a while as seasons would drop on Netflix. I think I got up to like seasons like 6 or 7, and I'm like, how is this still going on? Okay, it ended back in 2019, which it
Mm.
it started in 2011,
It started 2011,
so that's still 8 years, which that's surprising.
which yeah, we're like what Lego like you look at some other Lego series. I think it was like the Lego Chimera, right?
I don't know.
Well, other Lego series don't last as long. But yeah, Lego Ninjago was so good.
It it was kind of the quintessential fun action for me, like the
Yeah, I
characters
think that's what yeah.
Like the characters are all simple but enjoyable to watch. The action for TV animation was really good. Like I really enjoyed going through all that.
And there were some kind of serious moments in it.
It got emotional at times.
Yeah, like episode 8, season 1. Um, that's when Zane finds out he's a cyborg.
Spoiler.
Spoiler alert.
That's what
uh,
it. That's why it's like when
it,
people were.
I don't know if we have to give spoiler warning to a Lego Ninjago series that has been out since 2011.
I mean, we're
I'm gonna
advertising to
preface it.
people that they should go watch it because it's good, depending on what we remember.
I guess that's true. I guess that's true.
But it's kind. The series is kind of part of the reason why like people were when people were surprised that the Lego movie was good and emotional. I was like, I already knew Lego stuff could
Yeah,
be good,
yeah,
so I was
because
ahead of the curve on that as a
yeah,
12
exactly.
year old.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like you watch Lego Ninjago, and then 3 years later, the Lego movie comes out. You're like, "Well, I love Lego Ninjago. This has to be good."
And the Lego movie was really good. Then a couple
For a
years after
long time,
that,
it was in my top five.
then a couple years after that, the Lego Batman movie came out, which I
I liked.
I don't know how controversial this would be. It is like top three favorite Batman movies for me.
Does Joker count?
I'm not counting Joker. I'm counting that more as its own thing.
It's number 4 for
Okay, it's
me.
it's in two people's top five Batman movies, so that needs to say something. But then they finally did the Lego Ninjago movie, and I thought it was kind of bad.
Yeah, of all of the Lego movies, by the way, it has fantastic animation.
All of them look absolutely amazing.
Yeah, they all look great, but the Lego Ninjago one in particular kind of blew me away at first. I was like, "Whoa, this is amazing." But I think what disappointed me the most was they kind of just redid a lot of the things from the show,
Yeah. Like
and I'm happy because it's like, yeah, I love the show, but at the
it's like
same time,
and it makes sense. Like
they did,
different audience
yeah,
tried to redo a couple things. My biggest problem with it was like it didn't really have its own identity. Like Lego Movie had it was fun, it was energetic, it kind of had its full thing going on. Lego Batman was similar, but it felt like its own thing. Like it felt like they were still trying to do
yeah,
something different with it. Lego Ninjago felt like we're a Lego movie. Like
yeah. It's like you already know what you're getting. It's
yeah.
like I wanted more from you. You were the chosen one. You were sent to destroy the critics, not join
Yeah.
them.
And then the Lego Movie 2 came out, which I haven't watched that still. Like I don't know if I'm ever going to get around to it.
That's a different
Different
episode.
time. We'll have a full 3-hour video
Most
about the Lego movies.
most disappointing movie sequels or Lego
It's,
movie episode. One of these episodes will eventually release, and
we need to
for
find
me, that's up there.
a really weird and random conversation to pointlessly make 3 to 4 hours, 3 4 hours long. Because that I
It most disappointing movie sequels because I could talk about how bad Mary Poppins Returns is for a lifetime.
but that could just be its own video. Well,
That's true.
I'd rather do a video on Mary Poppins itself as it's one of the best movies of all time.
Then trash talking Mary Poppins Returns.
They don't deserve to be in the same video.
No.
I am
Like,
not going to have one of the best sandwiches. I don't know. I was trying to think of a food. I just came up with sandwiches. I had a French
hey,
dip yesterday. It was good. But like one of the most perfectly made filling sandwiches of all time to immediately go to a soggy like side of fries or something.
yeah, like, and they're like cold.
Like they're cold, they're soggy. You can still like the oil squeezes out whenever you take a bite out of it. Like
It's like, oh, hey, the Lin Manuel Miranda sauce. Oh, I like the Lin Manuel Miranda sauce, and it's empty.
appar- I guess all that sauce just went to Tick Tick Boom or something. I don't know.
I don't know.
I this probably
I
feels
feel
like
bad that he's in that movie.
yeah, it's, a lot of people shouldn't have been in that movie. But I don't know if this is the right place to say this. In-N-Out Burger, it's mid. Like
Oh, really?
it's it's fine. Like it's busy in so many different places. Like there's one like in like a strip mall like a mile away from me, and there's like a full block line almost any single time I go by there. Finally had the
Damn.
food. It was an okay burger,
Well,
but the fries did suck. Like the burger was meh, but the fries
uh,
sucked.
you know, fries make or break it for me.
It
Like
is
if I if,
literally part of the meal.
exactly, it's part of the meal. Like if your burger is a 10 out of 10, but your fries are garbage,
It's gonna lower the overall rating.
it's gonna drop the rating. That I
Especially for someone like me, where I always like putting fries in my sandwich whenever I'm eating it. So it's like if your fries are shit, that's literally going to ruin the burger for me.
yeah, you're ruining my sandwich.
We were talking about cartoons. I am sorry for the side tangent.
No, we could talk about food too, and it's part of the fun, right? It's Cartoon Network. We
I,
we throw whatever we want at you, and you have to accept it. Destroy, build, destroy.
yeah, I'm not just thinking of that one character in Gumball that was just a banana, and he would get naked sometimes, and he'd have a full
Yeah, Banana
ass.
Joe
Like
just rip off his ass or show his ass to the public.
male new.
By the way, go ahead. Male nudity. I want to hear
I
this.
A lot of things don't make sense to me. A lot of things confuse me. But one thing that I always get confused by is kind of like nudity standards in media. So a guy, you can show off everything, including the ass cheeks. It's okay. Turns around, you see the dick that's crossing a line. Women, you can't really show anything with women. So it's like, where's the logic? Like, I get people wanting to protect their own privacy, but this is like, if a guy's I doubt there was a person who went onto this, like one of the writers or storyboarders for Gumball and said, "Hey, this banana needs to show his ass." Like, so it was made the
I
decision that he
I
should
don't
show his
know.
ass.
There might have been someone who's like, "What if this banana had cheeks?"
Well, we know Rule 34 artists would have given it to him regardless, or they're very happy he had cheeks, but like, it was decided that this banana could show his ass cheeks, but if he was a woman, they wouldn't have been able to do that. Well, if he's a woman, they would have added like,
Does his wait? Because Banana Joe has a mom. Let me see if she has breasts. Well,
he
I'm
probably
not
does.
gonna. Hang on.
Private
Pause.
browser, private browser.
Banana. I went to type in Banana Joe's mom and I typed in Banana Joe. Mom. She doesn't have breasts, but he has cheeks.
That's really surprising because like almost anything animated you go to, when you get to the women, and there is something specifically done to make sure to signify that they have breasts.
I don't know. I feel like Gumball, like the
Well,
female characters are usually just kind of how they look.
yeah,
Like you have Tina Rex.
we've kind of
Don't
already
look up.
established Gumball is different from a lot of other stuff. If you go
Yeah,
to a
that's
lot
true.
of other stuff, it would literally sometimes just be a cloud, and there would just be things popping out of it, and it's
Yeah,
like,
don't look up Nicole Watterson. Or if you're into that, look Nicole Watterson on the internet. You'll
the
find
amount of
so
secondhand
much.
shit I have seen is just, it's,
It just
I,
appears. I
it,
don't know why I get this.
I don't,
Okay,
that this is one of those points where what I'm about to say sounds like a lie, like I'm over trying to cover something, but I am just being truthful. I don't look up anything like that. Like it just, I keep clear of it, but it just shows up in front of me.
exactly. It's like even if you're just browsing Twitter, it's like all of a sudden it's like bam, Nicole Watterson weird shipping, and it's like if you're into this, I'm so happy for you.
It's
Everyone deserves their own sexual fantasies within reason, but I'm not into this. Why is this on my Twitter?
well, it's like it's very funny with Nicole Watterson on Twitter because it's either like lewd art of her or it's a thread of someone saying why she could beat Sukuna from JJK.
Which she probably could.
From what I have seen, she probably could. Yeah.
And also the my favorite is the Mordecai and Rigby. It's like yes, they probably could. They figure a way out to beat everyone.
Well, I just with Mordecai and Ruby, I just keep seeing them done in like that one JJK panel of like they've drawn out like 120% of their potential. They keep drawing them in that.
Which, fair.
If
I,
if
all
I
right,
could see
to
anyone
bring us
getting into a fight with a curse and for like the fate of humanity, I could see those two doing it over like a hamburger or something.
Mordecai Rigby, I need you to go get In-N-Out Burger. Oh man, but it's so mid, Benson. No, you need to go get the In-N-Out Burger. Get the number two combo. If you don't, Pops is hungry. Okay. 5 minutes later, hey Benson, we're fighting three curses and we've reached our max potential.
And it's like Sukuna just pops out of nowhere and tries like domain expansioning like half the city. It just doesn't work
And
for some reason.
Muscle Man comes in. You know who else raided half the city? My
Mom,
mom. There should be a full. I want that like full collab Jujutsu Kaisen regular show. When do we get that?
you could probably find it somewhere on the internet.
Nice
Well, it's like
cover a full episode.
it's like I never sat down for a regular show, but I know a lot of people on Twitter have been kind of resharing scenes from it because people are kind of remembering how funny it was. And the funniest one I saw was just like it was like Benson trying to like trying to talk to everyone saying, "Okay, guys, I need this thing done. Can you like help me find someone?" And it's just panning over all of them.
Oh yeah,
Then
yeah.
you just see Muscle Man just like, and then it
Do you
just
want the
cuts.
context? Do you want the context for that episode?
Sure.
All right, this is one of the best episodes of regular show. It's called Dawn. That's literally the name of
DON
the
or
episode. Dawn.
DAWN?
DON.
Oh,
It's the name of a character. It's the
okay.
name of a character. Dawn. DON. And so the park is getting audited because Pops, the old guy,
Yeah.
big head.
Oh,
He yeah, he paid the tax people, like the IRS, with lollipops, and then his rationale is, "But I gave them more than enough." And Benson is like, "Yeah, so we need to find someone who can help with the taxes." And it pans to, of course, Muscle Man. He's like, "I know someone who could help. If you say your mom, you're fired." My mom. So it's great timing. It's great everything. And then he immediately, "You're fired or get out." And then he's like, "It was worth it." And then they leave. And you don't see him again for a little bit. And then they come back at the end of the episode. But the whole episode's plot is Rigby has a younger brother who can do taxes. And so his name is Dawn, and he comes in and does it. But of course, in the regular show fashion, it's not like he just comes in, finishes it. No, there has to be a big, which I'm all in for because it's one of the best episodes.
I'm now very interested for my regular show watch through because I'm just gonna wonder what the hell happens when he's doing his taxes. Because I already watched one episode where Rigby egged a house, the guy turned out to be a wizard, killed all of his friends
Turn
one
him
by one
into
house, and then egged him. I was watching one episode where they were doing a bowling tournament. Skips was like competing. Their other side was like a bunch of like interdimensional warlocks or something, and they literally ripped apart the fabric of reality just to keep him from rolling a strike. I'm like, where do you go from taxes? Because it could literally just be anything.
uh what was yeah, so Skips is voiced by Mark Hamill.
That was always very surprising. Mark
You
Hamill just
don't
shows
notice
up in
I did
places.
yeah, I didn't notice as a kid, but then like it's like, or I can't say as a kid. I was a teenager watching regular show. But after I watched regular show, I went back and rewatched it as like a college student. I was like, "Oh my God, this is Mark Hamill."
It's like my experience with that Cartoon Network was you know the movies How to Train Your Dragon?
Yes.
They had like a TV series that aired on Cartoon Network for a couple
Yeah,
seasons,
yeah,
then
yeah,
it
yeah,
moved
yeah.
over to Nickelodeon. I followed that. I probably would have mentioned that in my preteen stuff, but watching that, I was like 18, 19. I found out that one of the main villains of the first couple seasons was also voiced by Mark Hamill.
Mark Hamill,
He
like
just
what?
he just pops up in places.
He's talented. He's really talented.
He
People
is
don't give
extremely
him enough credit.
talented. But like him and Tom Kenny are the two voice actors that just kind of jump scare me the most. Where I am just
Tom Kenny.
like when I was watching through Rick and Morty, and every time he would just pop up as a side character, I'm just like, oh, what the fuck.
All right, teenager years. What was your Cartoon Network?
Uh, I think my teenage years was when I was taking a couple steps back from Cartoon Network. This was my cinephile snobby movie lover phase in high school, where I was like trying to go back to all the classics, watch as much as I can, get myself cultured.
Hmm.
Which of course meant I had to watch Spaceballs like a dozen times.
Yeah,
But
you're like space. Only the Martin Scorsese films. Yes, only Citizen Kane and Birth of a Nation. Yes, sir.
we do not talk about Birth of a Nation in this household.
But I'm a cinemaphile. Metropolis is so good.
But you know what I'm
Great
talking
movies.
about, Birth of a Nation, right?
Not Birth of a Nation.
It's
Yeah,
like,
not Birth of a
fuck
Nation.
Birth of a Nation. Anyone who says, but it's still a good movie, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, quality of production aside, there are two movies in which the Confederates are the protagonists, and we're supposed to be rooting for them. Birth of a Nation and Scooby Doo Zombie Island.
Oh yeah, I guess.
The
I, I,
ex-Confederate soldiers, the zombies, they help them beat the villains.
I guess you're right.
If you
Okay.
It's just technically a property that is linked to Cartoon Network, so I've linked it back.
Oh god. So,
So yeah, what was the teenage year Cartoon Network experience for NoTea?
uh, like I said, I kind of took a couple steps back from it. It wasn't until like college that I was like sitting down and watching all the stuff again.
Okay.
I got off my
Well,
high horse and learned how to have fun again.
good. Yeah. For me, quite simply, keep it with three shows again. It was Adventure Time, number one. And Adventure Time, for a very long time, was my favorite cartoon. What it's able to do, how it changed me as a person, how it challenged me as a person, and how I view music in cartoons and in media in general. Like music can be such a wonderful tool, and like this translates into anime as well. Like I love anime that are able to use music effectively, and so Adventure Time is probably the pioneer for that for me. And then of course regular show. And I have like obviously everyone kind of likes Amazing World of Gumball. It's just a great show. But I have a sleeper pick in my teenage years. A show came out, I think it was 2013, 2014. Now this is I had already lost cable, but I was able to watch this on I think it was Hulu in my teenage years. A show called Clarence. Have you ever seen Clarence?
I've heard of it. I don't think I've seen anything from it.
I think the first four episodes of Clarence are the whole series overall does a fantastic job at this, but I think the first four episodes in general are probably the greatest representation of childhood
Hmm.
I've ever seen in film or media or anything. For some reason, those first four episodes, they the writers just know what it's like to be a kid
Interesting.
again. Maybe a kid wrote it. I don't know, but um, something about it just takes you back to when you were a kid. Like I feel like I did everything that those kids did in those episodes. They're simple premises, but yeah.
I the biggest thing remember hearing about Clarence was when HBO Max was during their first big wipe through of a lot of like Cartoon Network projects. They were trying to get rid of Clarence and Uncle Grandpa, but since both of them had an episode that was a crossover with Steven Universe and they're keeping Steven Universe, they couldn't completely get rid of those episodes. So those shows were technically still on Max because they couldn't fully get rid of it. But that's
Mm,
the big thing I remember hearing about it.
yeah. Clarence, I think it's a sleeper pick. I think if you haven't seen it, give it a shot. It's definitely weird. Um, but those first four episodes I feel like really capture what it's like to be a kid again. In particular, my favorite episode is the episode, I think it's the second episode or third. It's called Money Broom Wizard.
Hmm.
Great episode. I won't get into it, so I'll let everyone's. This one I won't spoil, unlike
Ninjago,
when I spoiled Ninjago. I won't spoil this one
you
because I do
prick.
genuinely think this is something that you have to watch.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Zane is such a good character.
He is a really good character. You just why did you spoil it, people so we could tell grown ass people to go watch the Lego Ninja show?
Go buy the set. Spoil it for yourself. Go buy all the Lego sets. I'm gonna now work for Lego. I'm evil. And then as an adult, looking back, Cartoon Network. What are your series?
Well, right now, like I said, was my big one was Steven Universe. I was like, it was a really big series together. They had a lot of stuff in there. I going forward, the stuff I want to watch the most are I want to go through all of Adventure Time because I've just it seems like something I'd absolutely love. Like I said, I want to go through the regular show, and I've never seen Over the Garden Wall.
Uh, I've honestly, I think that's one of the Cartoon Network shows I've seen the least
Hmm.
because I think I've only seen a couple episodes, maybe the first five, and just timing just dropped it.
Yeah,
Should go back and rewatch it.
I think it's short. I think it's only like 10 episodes or something like that. It's just
Mm.
I don't know. I just it's one of the few short Cartoon Networks that I've heard about that people generally really like. So I just want to check it out, see what that's about.
Yeah, I think the atmosphere of Over the Garden Wall you could feel it again. Um, it's very similar to Adventure Time. I think isn't it written by Pendleton Ward? Am I crazy?
I'm not sure about that.
Created by Patrick McHale. Oh, I'm just gonna stop talking.
Yeah. But there's one more to watch going forward than Steven Universe I was big on, and like I've said, Chowder is just one of the best things I've ever seen. It was truly a stroke of genius making that masterpiece.
I completely agree. And if it makes you feel better, mine are Adventure Time, Courage, and Chowder. So Chowder has made it onto both of our lists.
Chowder supremacy.
Chowder supremacy. And this, let's be honest, our tastes in media, when there's an overlap, you know it has to be good.
Yes, you and I are pretty different in a lot of regards.
Which is, of course, why we started this podcast. And so for something to is like for us to both agree is objectively good, objectively funny, and something that we both recommend for everyone to watch. Because this is not like a series that like, oh, you have to be an adult to watch it. Oh, you have to be a kid to watch it. No,
Just
this is
watch it.
something that just watch it. If you have a kid, watch it with your kid. You'll both laugh. You'll both enjoy it.
Pick a random episode, you're going to laugh at least twice.
At least.
At
Like I remember when you were up in my place for that weekend, we just watched Chowder every night.
We did. There was the one episode where there was like the cloud following around Chowder, and he just was handed ice cream that looked like ass cheeks, and he just started licking it like mad. And I just could not stop laughing for like 10 minutes after that.
He had like his tongue like rotated in a circle. Like, oh my god, it's so funny.
I was not expecting it, and it almost killed me.
Oh man.
And I remember when I was there was a One Piece chapter that came out that we read. Did not get as big of a reaction out of us as some of those episodes of Chowder.
Yeah, and I mean, this is we've talked about this before. This is one of the peak arcs in One Piece.
Like, truly an experience that I don't know if we're going to get in the series again. And it was eclipsed by Chowder.
By Chowder. Yep. So now I'm gonna challenge you here. I wrote down two questions, which I actually still haven't decided on my answer yet. So my first question for you is, what is or who is your favorite? Or I'll start with this one. Who is your funniest Cartoon Network character?
Now, if I were to try to be fair and logical, this is a very long, intensive conversation that could honestly be its own video.
On video, okay.
But if I'm being true to my heart, it has to be Mung Doll from Chowder. Like,
I couldn't agree more. I wrote down Mung Doll.
I'm sorry, just there's a couple impressions I want to be able to learn to do someday. One of them is Gilbert Godfrey, and the other is Mung Doll, because I'm convinced if I could master that voice, I could automatically make anything funny.
It's his delivery, it's his animation, his design. It allows itself to be one of the funniest characters I've ever seen. Probably top 5 just ever.
Like, his writing is always very on point. Just he has so many quotable moments where it's like everything is working so fantastically. Like, I like going online and watching videos of people reanimating scenes of Mung Doll because it's just how many different things they could do with him, and it just always works.
And just the concept of him as a character, like he's the chef who takes in an apprentice who's married to uh let's say this let's say this how do I want to put this nicely for Truffle's sake. Uh maybe not the sweetest wife, let's say.
She has a firm hand and everything.
Yeah, yeah.
I would attempt to do a Truffles impression. I'm not going to butcher that.
No, you're not in this episode.
Okay, so we both agree Mung Doll, funniest character. What's your second question?
My second question is, who's your favorite
character?
Which is much, much harder. It's significantly harder.
Well, it's significantly harder because, like, as we've said multiple times, the variety. There's so many different characters who do so many different things.
Like, you have your funny characters, you have your emotional characters, you have a mix of both, you have so much.
Can I try doing like a top 3 or something like that?
Sure, that's fine. That's fine. Because I still kind of am deciding on mine.
One of them I'm probably going to say is Steven from Steven Universe himself. Specifically his character in Future, which I know a lot of people aren't the biggest fan of Future, but considering I was in a very similar place in my emotional state when I watched that, it was extremely relevant to me, and it's a very important thing to show that, like, the entire concept of Future really I was not expecting it. Like,
Yeah, it was a really interesting approach to
it's
the series.
literally, hey, the little kid
Hey,
main character from the main series is a bit older now, and he has severe emotional problems from everything he went through, and he is kind of actively crashing out because of all of it. And it's not like one of those series where it's like this is now for adults or something like that. It's for
it's
the
still for
audience that grew up with
kids.
it's still for the audience that grew
Oh
up with
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
series.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So, gonna say Steven's one of them. I'm just going to include Mung Dal on there just because, like, again, dude's just.
First comes to mind. He's just so fun.
And then I think for my third, you're probably gonna say this too, but Courage. Like, he represents
Nothing wrong with
serious
it.
and comedic so well. Like, his voice is absolutely hilarious. Like his mannerisms, but also watching him be terrified of absolutely everything, but still doing what he needs to for the family he cares about is just it's inspiring. And kind of watching the care and respect he has for everything is also very. Courage, I dare say, is a very good role model.
Yeah, he's one of those like, despite your fears, if you just use the computer to help you and believe in yourself, you can get rid of all of your fears. Ooh.
Muriel.
Yeah, those are pretty good, I would say. And yeah, you have kind of each element because you have like the more dramatic character who can be funny, Steven. You have the very funny character, as in Mung Dao, we've both agreed is probably the funniest. And then you have kind of a mix of both with Courage. I would say my top three, I will say Mung Dao just to make it easy, keep Mung Dao in there. Just he's so funny that you don't need the very dramatic moments. Um, I think Simon from Adventure Time,
Hmm.
Simon slash Ice King,
Is that a spoiler or?
that's his name. So I don't think that's a spoiler, but I won't get too deep into it for the people who want to watch it. I've already spoiled like Lego Ninjago, so um, what they're able to do with, because I want to say Marceline the Vampire Queen, but there is a connection between those two characters, and I think Ice King is better written.
Hmm.
Um, and man, I want to, I'm gonna say it, Sensei Wu. I
Not my
think
personal favorite Ninjago character, but I can respect it.
I, I just what he, I'm a sucker for those philosophical, big kind of personalities that can still be lighthearted. And he just always left an impact on me. Sensei
Hmm.
Wu.
Okay, definitely wasn't expecting that one.
And I don't know. While we're on the topic, what would be your top three adventure type shows? What would be your top three Cartoon Network shows?
Ah, that's really difficult. Can I arrange like this? Because I have so many that I need want need to watch for the first time slash rewatch that like I feel like if I gave something now, it wouldn't be fully encapsulating of what would actually probably be my favorites.
I think that's fair.
So I'm gonna put
Mine probably will change next week. We'll
so I'll probably put a tag board in this and just at some random episode in the future, I'm not gonna tell anyone when. I'm not even gonna tell you when. In the middle of something else, I'm just gonna drop what they are.
be in the middle of a very, very deep conversation about, oh, I don't know, fairy tale, just one that comes to mind, or
Maybe just
March comes in like a lion,
we're just
and you're gonna be like, oh, by the way,
yeah, we're just bearing our souls to each other. This is like intense, emotional. One of us is about to cry, and then just boom. These are my favorite
it'll
shows from
it'll
that one time.
it'll be like the poneglyphs where it just we finish an episode, then you're like, oh, by the way, my third favorite Cartoon Network series is Steven, and it's like, oh, write that down.
For anyone keeping
Which
track, like when that eventually happens, I would want people to be able to point out what episode that's from.
like a quiz, like there's a test on it. As the teacher of the two of us, I could easily make a test for everyone.
Ex- exactly. But
um,
yeah, is there anything else we want to talk about?
I think we've covered the retrospective pretty well. I think we've kind of
Yeah,
talked
it's
about as much as we can Cartoon Network. I think overall we can come to the conclusions that the reason Cartoon Network was successful is because of variety, quality, and experiments.
it truly did a lot of stuff that a lot of other stuff hadn't been doing, and I felt like it never really like you could tell with like other channels how it's like you kind of get to certain eras and there's very much like a particular style that takes hold and doesn't like go for a long time. Cartoon Network does something like that, but there's always a variety within that box. Like in the same generation, we had Ed and Eddie, Dexter's Lab, Powerpuff Girls. We also had Courage and Samurai Jack. So it's like,
And what right at the tail end of that you had Camp Lazlo and Foster's and My Gym Partner's a Monkey. So you had like that was
yeah.
all like 2004-ish. So
And even in like the
his
2010s, which was dominated by Steven and Adventure Time, you still had regular show and Over the Garden Wall, which are I don't think could be any more different from those.
and that's just like 2012 onward you have like Clarence and Amazing World of Gumball. And we didn't even talk about Ben 10 or Generator Rex.
We didn't even talk about Ben 10 or Generator X.
So
I never really
there
watched
is
Ben
so
10
much.
as a kid, but
Oh, I loved Ben 10 as a kid. I had the Omnitrix that was like the watch that they would turn into. Oh my god, I
of course you did.
that was like my favorite toy. I'd walk around and be like, "Oh, I need Diamond Guy," blah, and my grandma would be like, "What are you doing?" You know,
But
yeah,
yeah,
there's just so much. Like we said, we didn't even mention some of them.
we didn't even mention some
Oh,
of them. We forgot about some of them. We more or less completely excluded like Adult Swim from all this.
yeah, because like I said, I could Adult Swim, heck, King of the Hill, Smiling Friends, Rick and Morty alone, I could talk for years on.
Mm-hmm. But
So, but let us know, what did Cartoon Network do for you? Why did you go back to Cartoon Network? And what did you get from Cartoon Network?
like, what are some of your favorite shows, characters, things that got better as it got older or got worse as it got older? Just let us know.
Do you agree that Chowder is one of the funniest series of all time and Mung Doll is one of the funniest characters of all time? Do you disagree? If you disagree, why do you disagree? Because I genuinely don't understand that opinion, and we would definitely have to argue against you on that.
It would it would get heated, definitely.
Do you think In-N-Out Burger is mid?
We're gonna
We
have to
would
do.
like to
I feel
know.
like we're gonna have to do like a fast food chain tier list at some point because like I am curious on some of your takes on this stuff.
Yeah, especially moving. This because like now it's like, which ones do I miss the most?
Yeah, it's like I'm definitely feeling that like I moved from like the East Coast to the West Coast, and there's a lot of stuff that just isn't over here. There's no Waffle House over here, and I am so fucking upset about that. I was not expecting to be upset over a lack of Waffle House.
You know, I I slept on Waffle House for the longest time, and then one of my college friends, we went to Waffle House together. I was like, this is really good.
It is like I remember I was talking to one of my friends from work who is also from the South, and we were just both so devastated that there wasn't a Waffle House. Like, I think one of us tried to Google what the closest Waffle House was just for like comparison, and the page just didn't show anything because they could not show anything close enough to us to really make it worth showing us.
So like, yeah, so you're gonna have to go to Des Moines, Iowa.
Like, yeah, it's like, but yeah, I think spend an hour and a half talking about Cartoon Network. We're ending it off on Waffle House.
Yeah, Waffle House supremacy.
Woo! But thank you everyone for popping in. Don't forget to go down to the comment section, talk to us, please. We're very lonely.
Oh, how many you
We I thought we said this multiple times. You're not allowed to cry on camera.
I'm allowed to cry on camera when I talk about anime.
All right, but see you all next time.
See you guys. Thank you.